Okay, we've got Mr. Larry Mahaney here running for Clark County Commissioner, District 1. And what I'm saying about commissioners is the important thing is that the whole county can vote for you. It's not just District 1. All the districts will have access to vote for you on their ballots. So they can select you, and you're going to be you're running on the Libertarian ticket party. And I'm just going to jump right into it and tell you thank you for being here. But what are your best qualifications for the position? And what's your primary motivation for getting into this race, Larry?
So my best qualifications, well, for example, I currently work full time as an EMT over in Floyd County at the moment. Um, I've got quite a bit of experience working in Clark County as far as EMS as well. I know public safety is a big part of what the commissioners are responsible for, as well as having worked in Clark County. I've spent a lot of time in the unincorporated parts of the community, which is the commissioner's primary area of responsibility. Um, I've seen what's happened with EMS over the years here, good and bad. Um, so that's one of my bigger motivations is getting us something better, something that will last. Um, as well as I want to ensure contracts go to those that truly deserve them, those that will uphold their end of the deal. I want to see the commissioners as a group actually enforce the terms of the contracts. Um, and I also, on an unrelated note, want to see more, how do I put this? More accountability and more transparency from the Clark County government. I don't really agree with closed meetings. You know, I definitely don't agree with meetings that go on and the public find out about them later. And even to the point that, and I'm sure you've seen it at the commissioners' meetings, at council meetings as well, I do not think the commissioners should be allowed to make off mic comments or have off mic discussions with each other during public meetings because to me it's just not a good look. So yeah, I want more power back in the hands of constituents, more transparency with constituents, and I want if I am end up being a commissioner, I want you to be able to see that I am a man of my word, and you know that you can trust me in this office.
How would you do things differently than those who currently serve as a commissioner? Which you kind of already answered, but if you have anything additional to add.
So again, contracts would be upheld. The terms of the contracts would be enforced. There would be no, we didn't know, and there would be no, well, they're contracted until this date. It'd be just like myself contracting you for some sort of private sector business. You know, I want what I pay for, and I want it when I pay for it. I don't want or I don't want reactive solutions. I want something proactive. And I'm sure most constituents would agree with that.
You would be one vote and one of three commissioners, but would you be willing to commit to full transparency to your constituents? For example, will you support video recorded streamed meetings, including administrative meetings or any meeting outside of executive session? Making all minutes, contracts, ordinances, and resolutions available on the county website, and ensure distribution of packets of documents that support upcoming topics to be voted on ahead of the meetings so that constituents can engage and participate in decisions.
Yes, I am absolutely for that. In fact, when you mention live streamed and recorded meetings, I believe every meeting should be both live streamed and recorded. Um, because there may be someone who has a prior engagement that they cannot leave where they're at, but still has time to get to a computer and watch a meeting on Zoom or on their phone or whatever the case may be. And there may be people who cannot attend until later. I would also like to see something where, say, if you have questions or comments and you know you won't be able to attend the meeting in real time, some sort of online system where you can submit your questions ahead of time to be read during the meeting and answered. I believe in full transparency. You pay taxes. There should be nothing kept from you. You should have a detailed explanation of where every penny of your tax money goes.
Thank you. Currently, public comments are constrained to 3 minutes each, and we are told that the commissioners do not need to respond to or answer questions, although some members volunteer to do so depending on the topic. Would you be in favor of increasing the 3-minute limit depending on the situation and answering questions during public comment?
I'm definitely okay with increasing the limit. I am okay with not having a limit so long as everyone in attendance is made aware that there will be no limit to the time that people have for public comment, and that would in turn mean that there is no way to determine when the meeting would end.
And how are you going to ensure the public gets the opportunity to express their desires on a particular agenda item? How will you communicate with those you represent?
See, that I wouldn't limit just to the people I represent. I would like to ensure that, like, I've seen you post meeting agendas on Facebook. I believe that the county website should post every single meeting agenda they put out, available for public record. Um, that's another thing. I'm a firm believer that anything public record, we shouldn't have to jump through hoops to access. But yeah, I mean, I just make sure the whole county was aware to the best of my ability. Posted online, distributed to local media, um, posted on social media.
Okay. You've had some time to study the roles and responsibilities of this position. Have you familiarized yourself with past minutes, budgets, contracts, ordinances, resolutions, and policies for the position you're running for?
I haven't had very much time to look into all that much, but I do understand that the commissioners are responsible for awarding county contracts, appointing people to certain boards, having a little bit of a fire service background. I know fire protection district boards are commissioner appointed, as well as various other boards. I know maintenance of roads in the unincorporated parts of the county. It's the commissioner's responsibility to ensure that gets done, in conjunction with the county council, because they have to approve funding for whoever the contract is awarded to do the job. Um, and those are things I would like to see, a better approach to. I mean, again, I would like to see, like with the EMS contract, for example, I would like to see, terms like, a minimum number of ambulances on the street at all times, ensuring you have competent people on those ambulances by requiring very intense ongoing and training and education programs for that agency's personnel. Um, I'd like to see, contracts for things like taking care of roads go to not necessarily the lowest bidder. And this is the same for any contracts, not necessarily the lowest, not necessarily the most connected, but the best qualified bidder who has, how would I put it, the best reputation. As far as some of the other responsibilities, I mean, I believe in limiting the commissioner's job to what is statutorily within their scope. I know right now there are a couple hot button issues, and people on both sides of each of those issues want commissioners to do what commissioners don't really have the authority to do. And that is, I will admit, that is a challenge, being able to explain that to people without them thinking that you are trying to do the opposite of what they would like.
Have you and will you attend other county and or local government meetings while in office to keep informed on planning, future growth, current issues, and a general overall perspective on what other elected officials are doing that affect your decision-making process?
I do plan to attend as many as I can. Again, I still work a regular non-government job and will continue to, because not that I have anything against what commissioners are paid. I think it's more than fair for, the amount of time they spend functioning as government officials, but it's still not enough to support myself on. So yeah, outside of my regular work schedule, I do intend to be at as many meetings by as many different county and local agencies as I possibly can.
Okay, now the following questions are ones that we feel are important right now to Clark County voters. Do you have any relatives, close friends, business partners serving in a government position, on a government board, as an elected official, or in the building, development, and real estate fields here in Clark County?
I have one friend who is a realtor. I can't think of any friends that are serving as elected officials or on government boards or anything along those lines. Well, other than a former boss that is an elected county official, um, no family in any of those positions. But other than, as far as what you mentioned, other than the one friend that's a realtor and a former boss who is currently an elected county official, I honestly can't think of any off the top of my head.
Outside of county administrative powers, commissioners can sit on various committees and boards. What is your view on industrial solar projects being placed on agricultural land in Clark County?
So that's one of the hot button topics I was mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is there a risk to adjacent properties? Possibly. Um, However, as Commissioner Kaufman mentioned during a previous meeting that actually the subject had nothing to do with solar, I believe something was brought up regarding one of the truck stops in Memphis. And as he said, commissioners have no authority over private property. Um, the only recourse would be to prevent, solar from going in on someone's property. Like if a resident of Clark County wants their property protected by not letting their neighbor have solar, it's my understanding that the neighbor's property would have to be rezoned, which I don't think anybody really wants to force rezoning on their neighbor, and I am adamantly against it. And I know people don't want their property endangered, but at the same time, I am a firm believer that until your rights are in the process of being violated, um, or have been violated, then you, well, have no right to take action or to ask that commissioners or any county, city, state, federal official take action. Um, Now, I do believe that there could possibly be some type of compromise, like saying if you're going to put solar on your land, it must not come within X distance of any adjacent property. But again, I think with rezoning being the only true way to say you're not allowed to do that, I can speak for a lot of people when I say we saw at the all the meetings regarding rezoning up in Union Township for the building of that new subdivision, how that went over. That, rezoning is not the solution people want. They want the agricultural land to stay agricultural. And for lack of a better way to put it, that's why I'm saying we have to come to some sort of compromise, because obviously you cannot keep agricultural land agricultural while simultaneously rezoning it to keep out solar.
What is your view on the Clark County Comprehensive Plan and developing and rezoning agricultural land here in Clark County? How can we balance development with maintaining agricultural land responsibly?
So I think that's going to come down to each individual. A lot of it's going to come down to each individual landowner, because I'm sure there are probably have been some in the past and will be some over the years that'll say, well, I'm not using this land for agricultural purposes. Go ahead. Others want to continue farming their land, and I'm all for that because those people provide their livestock and their crops provide a lot of resources we need. Whether it be corn for, there's so many different things corn's used for, soybeans, cattle. Um, and I've got friends and family that farm. So I know how important it is to maintain agricultural land. But yeah, and I believe that we can still have a lot of economic development. As a matter of fact, that's another thing I would like to take a completely different approach to as far as what we do to develop Clark County's economy. But yeah, I think we can definitely balance everything out, and it's not really as complicated as some people might think.
River Ridge Development Authority is a quasi-governmental body who is able to bring companies into the area and conduct business without citizen input or knowledge until contracts are already signed. As an urban enterprise zone and TIF district, they also retain generated tax income and revenue that does not go back into the community like a standard district. Do you believe there should be more continuity between River Ridge Development Authority and Clark County government? And will you attend River Ridge board meetings, give input, and seek property tax revenue from River Ridge to fund needed infrastructure improvements?
I'm just going to put this bluntly. My thought is, if I got to pay to run a business in Clark County, you got to pay to run a business in Clark County. And to be honest, I definitely appreciate, some of the things that River Ridge has done. They've brought in businesses that resulted in jobs for a lot of Clark County residents, myself included, working at Amazon when I first moved to the area. The issue is, again, the lack of requirement of, public input or, you know, public knowledge. To me, that's not okay. And as you know, again, as is the whole, not paying taxes like a standard district. Um, and to be fair, with the businesses that River Ridge has brought in, I mean, these are large companies that generate a lot of revenue. But at the same time, those large businesses, are based either somewhere else in the US or in a completely different country.
Mhm.
And that means that no matter how we go about it, quite a bit of the money that business is bringing in is leaving Clark County. I'd like to see, rather than River Ridge, some sort of economic development plan that, brings us um, more small locally owned businesses. And when I say locally owned, I mean truly independently locally owned. Just for clarification, um, a large um, multinational or multi-state company, or you know having a facility in Clark County, to me, does not count as a small locally owned business. Um, but yeah, I believe River Ridge is, it has done some good things, but when it comes down to it, something like that, that's bringing these large nationwide or sometimes multinational corporations, is more harmful than in our economy than it is helpful.
As a commissioner, you will not be a full-time employee of the county, but you will be offered a full medical insurance benefit. Some constituents are not okay with paying for this benefit to less than full-time employees, and other people are okay with it. What's your position on this topic, and will you be taking county insurance if elected?
I do not plan to take county insurance. I have insurance through my full-time job. And other than, you know, the commissioners and other Clark County employees, you know, various elected officials throughout the country, I have yet to find anyone in the US who is provided insurance by their employer without working less than a certain number of dollars per week in that capacity. So, if you can't get insurance working, the hours, working only the hours they work at your regular job, then why should they?
The current landfill is nearing capacity with a series of expansions over decades. Residents complain of foul odors, traffic, wastewater concerns, a lack of accountability and oversight, and a lack of planning for rapid growth, especially with River Ridge in Clark County. Have you looked at plans and funds for closure and post closure? And what are your thoughts on solutions for handling the landfill needs?
So that, I'll be honest, I've been out to the landfill several times. I would look to consult, people that were subject matter experts. But I do understand, the validity of the complaints, because it's not a pleasant smell. And, you know, there needs to be some sort of solution other than expanding outward, because even things you do at your own house, you can only go so far before you're getting into your neighbor's property. Um, so that's, you know, expansion is a temporary solution, and it is a very limited solution. Um, I believe that other communities that are, have been found to be using more ecologically sound means of waste management, their systems need to be looked into, and some serious reviewing should be done to figure out what works best for Clark County.
Mhm.
I don't believe though that like a shutdown of the landfill, a closure of the landfill is definitely, probably not the best idea because our trash has to go somewhere. And unfortunately, with waste disposal, there are no pleasant ways to go about it.
Clark County has a history of contract EMS services. Due to the current EMS scandals, we have another temporary EMS contract in place. The EMS committee has been discussing a county-based, municipal, and/or fire-based solution to our EMS deficits for years. What's your position on continuing EMS contracts versus transitioning to a government-run solution?
So, my personal experience, contract services open the door for a lot of lack of accountability. I'm not going to mention the agency, but there was a contract agency, a private service, a private business contracted to provide fire protection services in the county at one point. And there was some financials that they would refuse to provide their, well, as most people put it, they would refuse to show receipts. And some of their senior staff, including the ones at the very top, would say that because we have covered what we're contracted to cover, by law, we are not required to say where the rest of the money is going. And again, I believe you as a taxpayer have every right to know where, down to the penny, what is being done with the taxes you pay. But yeah, the bad thing with contract services, there is legally a little less accountability. It's not, that they are allowed to not follow the law. It's the way the law is written, which that unfortunately is going to require a state level change. That's not something the commissioner is going to be able to fix. You do have more control by the people with a fire-based county or municipal service. But one of the issues with that is, starting an EMS service from the ground up is not an easy task. And I don't know anybody around right now, especially not with EMS related knowledge and experience, who has been around to see a ground up service be started. If you look at it, it's always been well established. Even the private services that we've contracted with, they've always came in already well established. But I will say that I think what is not being considered is whether an agency is a private agency or a county, city, or fire-based agency. One thing that is not going to be impacted, one thing that will not change is how much it costs them to provide the services they're asked to provide. It's not going to be a cheap option. At least if we want a quality service. I'll even mention, what was it, $1.8 million a year that New Chapel was getting. A lot of people think that's a lot of money, but that would not, even with minimum staffing, the fewest number of people they would have to staff 6 ambulances 24/7. Plus, obviously, they've got to have some sort of administrative staff. If you divided that up equally as just payroll for all those people and didn't consider any other costs, it would be less than minimum wage. So if we want a service, that is the downside is, it's going to cost more if we want a service that is dedicated to only answering 911 calls and not doing those non-emergent transfers that destroyed our emergency coverage for quite some time. But yeah, I can see benefits to both. Again, that would be why I would say that there need to be explicit terms of the contract and they need to be enforced. Violations of those terms need to be dealt with when they happen. And I believe it's the commissioner's job to, keep an eye on things, to know when it should have been the commissioner's responsibility, like to know when we went down to less than 6 ambulances because they decided to send one of those 6 on a non-emergent run, or when they didn't have the staffing. I'm even for a term in the contract that says that all leadership personnel are required to make run or get on the ambulance whenever staffing issues make it a necessity, and to not wait until they absolutely have no other choice. Like not waiting until Clark County Dispatch has people waiting on ambulances and we're turning around waiting on those ambulances to get manned. Like the moment if we're contracted 6, the moment we go down to 5, sure, attempt to call people in, but 2 people in a leadership position need to be on an ambulance making that 6th until those relief personnel can make it in and get on the truck. See, I can see pros and cons to both. I would prefer to see us have a county service, though.
Property taxes seem to be increasing for most property owners in Clark County, significantly for many. The commissioners and council work together to set the county budget. Some local representatives allege that they have no control over property taxes. What is your view on the role that commissioners play in property taxes, and will you have the power to make a difference in that area?
So I know there are a couple of the gubernatorial candidates that have thrown out campaign promises involving elimination of property taxes. And I do believe commissioners can have an influence on local property taxes. I definitely plan to fight for lowering, if not lowering, at least stopping arbitrary increases of property taxes, because again, if what I do for you hasn't increased, then what you pay me shouldn't increase. I mean, obviously, everything gets more expensive over time. So over the years, property taxes are going to go up because the things they pay for over the years will keep costing more and more to provide. I do think, that a lot of it does seem arbitrary. Like I'll see property tax increases, and not really see any improvement of the services that, again, those taxes are supposed to provide. In fact, I've probably seen some examples of the quality of the services property taxes provide getting worse despite tax increases. But yeah, I don't know that I would say commissioners have really control over property taxes, but I can see the commissioners having a big influence, and I plan to, try and have an influence that is best for the wallets of my fellow Clark County residents.
Right. What other topics are important to you? What else do you want voters to know? And how can people learn more about you and support your campaign?
So, as mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, I am a libertarian, which means I believe in minimal government involvement. I believe in accountability of government. I believe in transparency. Again, I believe every meeting should be public. And I think that, again, you should know where every penny of your tax dollars is going to. Something I do not believe is just pushing it, using my position to push anyone's will. No matter how many people want whatever is being asked for, because I believe the rights of the individual are always more important and take precedence over the wishes of a collective. You could have, let's see, the entire population of Clark County, except yourself, want one thing, you want the other. And again, what either side wants or doesn't want is not the issue. Your rights as an individual are far more important than the rest of the county's wishes. And that's the way I feel about each individual Clark County resident and each individual person on the planet, really.
Now, you're on social media. Do you have a website as well, or is that where people can find you on social media?
Social media right now, I'm still debating on whether or not I want to build a website, but yeah, I'm on Facebook, looking at setting up on other social media platforms. I do plan on, maybe even before the election, people can get more information about me, possibly hosting, Facebook Live events, where people are going to ask questions and get answers to their questions, as well as, the same thing, the same thing while in office as in the event that I actually am elected. But yeah, I plan on having a very large social media presence, obviously when available. And I do intend to be reachable at all times in some way, shape, or form.
Okay. Well, you have been very reachable for us so far. So I really want to thank you for your time. Really appreciate you doing this interview with us. And good luck to you in November.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, have a great day.
You too.